On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2001. We're going to be taking a look at Jay Black, and he's going to be performing Cara. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. First of all, thank you for all of the requests for this particular video tonight following the sad news that Jay Black passed away recently. We're going to be taking a look at this performance back in 2001. We'll watch it the whole way through, and I'm going to leave Jay's intro in there as well because he explains about the fact that he recorded this song so long ago and it's been such a long time from that original recording. But let's get Jay up on screen and see how he gets on.
And the next song I'm going to do for you, I have to explain this before I do it. I recorded this song when I was 25 years old. So bear in mind, I decided that because of the notes in this song, how high they were, that I would retire at the age of 40. Now circumstances led up to me not being able to retire, so I hit 50. And I said, what am I going to do for the next couple of years? Well, to make a long story short, I'm now 62 years old and have to hit the same notes. But as you can see by the color of my hair and by my body, nobody here will say, why doesn't he quit? You're just going to look at me if I hit a bad note and say, what a pity. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, so let's do it. Cara mia, why must we say goodbye? Each time we part, my heart wants to
And there we have it, a standing ovation, quite rightly, because that was such a great vocal performance. And what I love about the fact that this is so long after the original recording is the fact that his voice is in such great shape, and it can be argued that when you've listened to that original record, that his voice is actually under more control in 2001, because on the original record he has a vibrato within his voice that is quite fast, and it sounds like it's just within there, and sometimes can be a little bit too fast potentially, but here he's got total control of that vibrato, and he has consciously, I think, slowed it down so you get even more of that classical sound to his voice. And he is undoubtedly a classically trained singer. And this is something that you can say about the talent back in the 60s, that you had singers that were in the mainstream who were classically trained and had this kind of ability. And when he's making that transition into his head voice, he's making that flip over and he's hitting these notes right in that male tenor range at the top of that, because we do have a C5. That's the highest note of this song, and this is the highest note that he's hitting here. He's not making any concessions with the key. He's not taking it any lower because of the amount of time that's passed. He's still got that vocal cord flexibility to get those vocal cords together, to get a really close connection in that head voice. And it doesn't sound like a falsetto sound because he's not putting lots of air through his vocal cords. He's keeping them really tight. So you get such a clean tone at the top end. Something that you get an appreciation of with this performance, with that intro, is just how likable Jay was, how natural he was on stage. And he did a stand-up routine, a bit of comedy before he would perform. And that was just something that he did as part of his act. So not only did he have that talent, but he was somebody that people could relate to, and he had that rapport with an audience, which isn't something that you always get with well-known artists, and very few people have that ability to break down that wall between the stage and the audience, and that's certainly what Jay does with this performance. The other thing to mention is that Jay was referred to as simply the voice, which gives you an idea of that vocal ability and how well respected he was for that within the industry. And let me get the piano up on screen so that we can have a look at the range that's being covered here by Jay. And when we're looking at the range, we've got over an octave. We're starting in the verses down around a G3, and if we're looking at that on our piano, hopefully you can see the arrow here. This is our G3, and I've already said that our high note is going to be the C5. So if we're looking at all of these notes that are being covered, we get all the way up to the male tenor high C. And he's hitting this in that head voice configuration. With classical singers, the tenors would hit a C5 in chest voice, so they wouldn't go into that lighter configuration. But the thing is about these lighter configurations is that it needs great vocal technique to give those vocal cords just enough air, but not too much air, to bring them together and get a really clean tone, as Jay does in this performance. So we've got one hell of a range going on. You can see on the piano or above the piano the vocal ranges that we've got going on here. But even hitting these notes so long after that original recording is so impressive. I've just taken the video back a little bit so that you guys can hear where Jay holds on this G4. And the G4 is pretty much the highest note that we're going to have in chest voice. So this is where Jay's really applying a lot of breath support. You can hear the amount of power that he has in his voice hitting this G4, but not only hitting it, belting it out and maintaining it. And the impressive thing about this is that he holds the note for so long that everyone starts to applaud in the audience. But look out for the way that he ends the vocal phrase. He doesn't take a breath before getting back into the verse. So the extra bit of vocal on the end is still in the same breath that he's taken, and just the control that he has in his voice and of his air in order to hold enough back to then complete the vocal phrase. But let's have a listen. And even at the end of that line, he's still got enough air left over to apply the vibrato at the end of the phrase. And he even holds that note for longer than he needs to, just to show that he's still got all that technique there. And he's approached that vocal phrase with perfect technique, breathing wise, just taking that breath and holding it beneath those vocal cords. And again, it's a great indication of great vocal technique to get that vocal cord connection in chest voice, have such a strong tone, so much body in the sound, but with minimal air, because you can get it to last for such a long time. When we're looking at the piano, just to show you the G4 that we were holding there would be just down here. So you can see that we're not a mile away from the C5. The A4, which is, you know, in the tenor range towards the top end of it, we're just a tone below that at the G4. So massively impressive. I do want to get into a little bit of Jay's history in this video. And I say Jay, but originally David Black was his stage name, and he changed his name to Jay because of Jay and the Americans. Initially, he wasn't in the band. He was in the band called the Empires, and Jay and the Americans were already a band that were going, and it was Jay Trainer who was the Jay in the band at that time, and they did have a relatively big hit in 1962 called She Cried, but after that, the original Jay left, and then David joined, and then changed his name to Jay at that point. It was actually Marty Sanders, who was the guitarist for the Empires, who moved over to join Jay and the Americans, and he took David with him, so David Black became Jay Black, and they had a lot of success at this point. Hits like Only in America, Come a Little Bit Closer, and Cara, of course, which we've just watched. Interestingly, if you get a chance to listen to Come a Little Bit Closer, it's an interesting composition because it's got a chorus where everything drops out. Apart from pretty much the vocal and a bit of percussion, it's really interesting in that they don't add to it for the chorus, and that is rare for a song. If you do get a chance, listen to that because you'll notice it. So they had huge success throughout the 60s. This song, for example, got to number 4 in the USA, and this was in 1965. They also released in 1969 their version of This Magic Moment, and that was another huge hit. It sold over 1 million copies, got to number 6 in the charts. They were in huge demand to tour over in the USA throughout the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and it was in 1973 that the band split. They went their separate ways, but in 1980, Cara was re-released in the Netherlands, and that turned into a massive hit again over there, getting to number 1. They were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2002, and sadly in 2006, Jay had to file for bankruptcy due to gambling debts that he had, quite a lot of them. He had to sell the rights to the name of the band, Jay Black and the Americans, to previous members of the band, and that was sold for $100,000. Unfortunately, he could then no longer use the name. I think in this performance, it was 2001, so he still had the rights in this performance, but after 2006, he didn't. So he did manage to maintain his name, Jay Black, so he could still perform using that. And the former members did reunite and replaced Jay with another singer, of course. They called him Jay, so he changed his name as well. But Jay would continue to perform, entertaining the crowds after 2001, as recently as 2017, I think, was his last performance. But sadly, Jay did pass away a few days ago on the 22nd of October 2021, and that was just 11 days shy of his 83rd birthday. But it's great that we can look back at videos like this and relatively recent videos as well to show just how in shape he kept his voice, still being able to hit these high C's just dead on pitch and having total control of his voice the whole time. But thank you guys for requesting this video for us to take a look at tonight and really get to appreciate Jay's vocal ability, and I will see you guys at the next one.